And we're live. Welcome to episode 5 of the StoryMode podcast with the quest for the better intro. And I am joined today with my co-hosts Lewis and Hiimmikegaming and our special guest Itslewdicolo. For those of you who haven't seen the show before, this is a full spoiler cast where we sit down and just kind of discuss our thoughts on the game at hand, and this time it's Firewatch. So we're going to start with real quick introductions. I'm Blind, and I'm the host of the show. And Mike, what are you up to today?
Oh, lots of working and playing games and talking to you guys now. Hi, everyone. You probably seen me in Blind Chat as his mod and a person who sometimes streams on Twitch. But yeah, hi, everyone.
And LRFLEW, aka Lewis, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty well. Just woke up, had a good lunch.
You woke up and ate lunch? Why would you eat lunch directly after waking up?
Because I sleep until noon, okay?
So then it's breakfast, because you just woke up. You can't eat lunch right after waking up. That's like sacrilegious.
I think we can settle for brunch.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was just going to say that.
It was an omelet, so it's officially brunch. Anyways.
Okay. And
See me on Twitch as LRFLEW. I'm in Blind Chat, and I'm trying to stream. We'll see how successful that is.
And Lude, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Itslewdicolo, and I'm mostly a Minecraft streamer on Twitch. But I did play through Firewatch on stream, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So I'm pretty excited about this podcast.
So the entire purpose of this show is to just sit down and discuss our thoughts and general, I don't know, opinions on the story of the game. And so if you are afraid of spoilers or haven't played Firewatch or you don't want to be spoiled, I absolutely recommend that you leave right now. Go play the game and then come back. If you don't care about spoilers, and that is okay, then sit down and enjoy the show. So I guess we better get started. So guys, does anybody have anything they want to bring up right off the bat about Firewatch?
OMG, the graphics.
Everybody starts talking all at once. Excellent.
Perfect, right?
Let's just start with Mike, because he's below me and he doesn't have a camera, so we have to give him some sort of spotlight.
Whee! I said the game is very orange.
Yes, it is indeed orange. I think Lewis mentioned something about performance issues.
Yeah, I was going to mention this real quick. I'm playing on a laptop. It's not the best laptop, but it's decent. It can handle most games. But this game, it was running at 15 FPS, and all that was on screen was text.
It's funny because like you're running on a MacBook Pro, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, it has a dedicated graphics card, so
Yeah.
it's not.
No, I know. It's funny because like that's basically sounds like what the PS4 performance was. I know that we all played on various computers, but
Yeah.
I've heard that the PlayStation 4 performance for Firewatch was actually kind of like trippy at points.
Yeah.
I guess that's just kind of a side effect of running in Unity. So
I'm not so sure about that. I've seen Unity games that perform a lot better than this. I mean, Stick It to the Man was a Unity game, and it performed just fine.
yeah, but
I mean,
that game
even-
didn't have graphics.
Even Dr. Langeloth was a Unity game, I believe, and that performed just fine.
Yeah, but like Stick It to the Man was basically like 2D sprites for the most part. So how did we all play this game? Like, how did you play through it? Because I kind of played through it as kind of a quiet family man, just like kind of trying to get through the job without like letting out too much about myself. And it's interesting to me, especially watching that trailer just now, because I didn't hear any of that dialogue in that entire trailer. And I know that the game kind of branches out and comes back to like one specific ending. So I'm curious.
Well, I played it twice, and I did it kind of two different ways. One where I tried to be a bit more empathetical, so I went kind of more like what I would do in that situation. And then the second time I did options that I didn't do previously, so I took a little bit more of a jerk route. And there wasn't that much difference. I mean, a lot of the incidental dialogue changed, but not a ton.
Yeah, I had heard that you really can't change the storyline very much depending on the answers that you give to the certain situations that you're put in. You can, even if you go down the jerk route or the family man route, the storyline really doesn't differ,
It's
very
just
much.
like individual bits of dialogue depending on where you are.
Right.
Swap around from what I've heard. So, but I'm kind of okay with
Yeah.
that. As long as it changes the general atmosphere of the game, I think that's acceptable. I don't.
No,
I was
fully-
just gonna say.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna say. So the way I played it, I can completely confirm that the way you played actually has no effect on the story. Is I was playing it like a guy who had a total personality disorder. So. Would be like very, very normal, The next one, if it would just follow up, would be like a total jerk. So it would be like, I don't know, you would initiate a conversation about something, and then when Delilah would ask more about it because you initiated, you'd be like, oh, I don't want to talk about it, just leave me alone. And I actually did this because I was streaming the game and I was trying to make it a bit more fun for the audience, and that worked out well. But I had a lot of fun with it because of that as well.
So you were bipolar. That's the funny.
Yes.
That is actually hilarious. I need to try that because I think that would make some really funny dialogue trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I was streaming the game as well, and that kind of influenced my decision to kind of go the family man route. I didn't want my viewers to be like, "Oh man, this Ludicolo's a jerk, unfaithful to his wife."
Yeah. I kind of went down with the I want to be kind of just quieter and faithful and not an asshat for the most part route. Although I did steal the whiskey. Did it? Okay, one thing that really bugged me about this game, and this is something that actually ties back into Lewis's complaint about performance. That's the sequence at the beginning when you're following the beer cans. I wasn't claiming the beer cans. I was picking up the beer can and throwing it. So I had a pile of like 18 beer cans. And it's funny because every time I picked up the beer can, it would like shred the performance. And I wanted to see how low I could get the FPS by having all these little objects. And I was kind of doing a combination of picking them up and running up a hill. Like there was a point where I literally ran to the bottom of a hill, picked up a can, ran to the top of the hill, threw the can, ran back down to the bottom of the hill until I came to this log where I couldn't get them across. And as I walked across the log with a beer can, there must have been a loading time on that log or something, but the cans would despawn. And I was actually really bad because
I watched your Twitter rant about that live.
I was like, no.
That's pretty funny.
It was like such a huge loss. I was like, yay, I'm gonna get all of these cans. I'm gonna take the screenshot of like 50 cans going, did anybody else do this? And then they started despawning and I could see more cans on the other side of the thing and I was so mad. I was so mad.
I didn't do anything like that. But I did actually do it differently both times. So the first time I picked up every can and I did the cleanup. So, you basically get rid of it. And then the second time I picked one up and I decided to just drop it back down. And he had said some dialogue like, I am not the maid here.
Yeah, no, it's... What do you guys think of the story arc? Because there was a lot of hype and a lot of weird speculation about this game when it first came out because number one, they were really mysterious with the trailers, right? And they did a really good job of being like, it's a mystery, mystical. But I was kind of expecting this game to go a little bit more full-on Lost with it. But then when I actually sat down and played through it, because I was really good at like avoiding spoilers, the only spoiler that I got pre-playing this game was that if you ask Delilah to come home with you, she says no. That was the only thing that I got. So I was like, okay, well, I just want to pick that dialogue option because I want to know what the other one is.
You see, now I started playing Firewatch thinking that it was Overwatch.
Really?
Because I was streaming Minecraft and one of my viewers gifted it to me and said, you have to play this game, it's amazing. And I said, all right, well, I'll give it a try. I thought it was Overwatch. And I picked it up and I'm like, all right, when do I get my gun? This is
So that's the dialogue option. You can say, get me a gun.
That is funny. That is actually really funny. So it was
Yeah.
kind of a happy accident then, one could say.
It was a happy accident, yeah.
Okay.
But I would say my opinion on the story arc was 85% of it was really well written.
Okay, so
I would agree with that.
let's sit here and think, what was bad in our honest opinion, or like where did it fall apart? What happened? Like what went wrong? Because I know that everybody that I've talked to so far has kind of like about this game, because I talked to FM Scan Radio while like just on Discord a couple days ago about this, and he seems to just kind of have that same feeling that it's amazing and then something happens. So let's start with Mike. What do you think?
Okay, so I know why you picked me. It's because I've been telling you about this game for about half a year before it came out, and I was hyping it up like a year before.
Yes, and I kept telling you to shut up.
I know, right?
Like, I don't care.
And I was so into this game. And I really, really wanted to play it, and like everything I've seen about it looked amazing. Like at one point, it even stopped being about the story for me. It was all about just how it looked, and I as I said, I know that I said it's very orange, but man, like those videos and those screenshots that they had for like various events, they just blew my mind. And then the whole dialogue thing that also got me into it. And so I wasn't actually thinking about the story, how it would be before I got the game. And so when I finally got in, I have to say that my first experience like was kind of shocking, because I didn't expect the opening scene to be a text game. And I was like, wait, there's something wrong here. What's going on? But then I got over it, because obviously it's just a setup, and it was cool.
Oh my god, that thing damn near made me cry at the beginning. Let's continue.
No,
it was like
very
wrenching.
powerful.
It was it was brutal.
But the whole thing worked quite well till about the 85% mark, right? Where you get to the, you play the story, you get to enjoy the character, you get to do the only sort of communication that you have with somebody else over the radio, and that's really cool as well. And like the whole story dialogue tree working in a specific way was amazing, and I just loved the fact that there was like constantly there was an option for you to initiate that dialogue, and it was just a really nice way of conveying the story, in addition to the fact that you were exploring the area and trying to learn what's going on. So I thought every single part of that was done quite well, and as I said, I personally enjoy the story, and I like the twists, I like the mystery. But then when you hit that 85% mark, it just felt really weak. Like it was super anticlimactic. It was just, I don't know, I just felt disappointed, and I think people saw this on the stream as well. Like my face, just like I lost the enjoyment for the game. And I'm not saying that it was any, like, it wasn't bad. It was just, it built up so much hype throughout the game, throughout the story, that ending was just like, okay. I was expecting more from this.
What about the ending made... Because I think I'm the only person who doesn't feel this way. I genuinely like the ending.
I have to agree with you, Blind, in the sense that I didn't necessarily see a problem with this ending. There's actually an online web series I was following. I'm not going to mention the name right now, but it kind of had a very similar style in the sense that there was an overarching mystery, and they kept giving you hints to it, and you had to kind of go along. And I remember it was something like a year before the last episode came out, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be a really interesting ending. This is going to be very exciting. And then, the episode finally came out, and I was like, that's a really disappointing ending for it. And I had realized a lot of it was, there was a question that was asked very early on, like, is this real or is it not sort of question. And I took the wrong guess. I thought it was real when it wasn't, sort of thing, or it wasn't when it was. And I felt disappointed. And I'm wondering if there's a little bit of that in there for Mike, that you expected the story to go one way, and so when it switched, you got disappointed.
Mike, let's be very specific. At what point, like, just name an event in the game. At what point did it start to take that downhill?
I think it's just your journey towards finding out that it was Ned. I don't know. It's something about the fact that there was just so much buildup about the secret research area,
okay,
all the things happening. The girls disappearing. Is there anything worse happening here?
Can I say something about the secret research area? And I think we should let Luke talk in a moment here. But did any of you guys figure out what it was?
I did. only after reading about the game after I finished.
I knew what it was
I
the
never figured
second I saw it.
Really?
Part of this
You're
is
familiar with it?
I was in scouting for a very long time, and one of the things that I did as a project was we learned how to use ham radios, and the other thing we learned as part of that project was we learned about tracking animals. That deer at the very beginning of the game, you know when you see the deer in the middle of the pathway? It has the tracking collar on.
Oh.
That deer is standing right in front of you, and it has a tracking collar
wow.
on. And you can actually hear
So
the beep.
If you know what that is, then you immediately know what that
What happened was I got to that point in the game, and then when I saw the research place and you see the belt and it's going beep 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 beep, I looked at that and I was like, interesting. I saved, closed the game, and restarted. And I spotted it. Apparently, you can find that deer dead somewhere. According to
found it.
I never did. I didn't find it dead,
Yeah.
but I did find it before. I spotted it at the beginning, which I found very interesting actually. So to me that there wasn't any real mystery there. To me, looking at that, I was going, okay, someone's using this. And at the end, once you figure out that it's Ned, if you go through his stuff, there's actually like a piece of paper saying when the staff for that camp leaves for the summer, and when to break in, because it's like they leave on August 10th, I'll break in August 11th or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, going back to the 85%, I was pretty darn immersed into the game. You know, like I started the game kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to finish it during the stream. But I got so into the game and so involved, and the mystery was so appealing, and you know, the way that they present the storyline was something I'd never seen before. I was just really into the game, and so yeah, the anticlimactic ending is, you know, part of that 85%. I think there's some things that weren't explained very well, like the tracking. That center where they were tracking the deer and the elk. I still, playing that game, I never figured out what that was for. It still was kind of a mystery, and so I think that could have maybe been written better. But yeah, the ending. I mean, you've got the girls that went missing and they ended up, you know, stealing a tractor. You know, they really weren't. It was shredded. Looks like they got attacked by a bear or something. And but really what it was is they just ran off and stole a tractor and got arrested and were in jail for a couple of days. You know, the ending was very anticlimactic. I was disappointed in the point where you couldn't affect the end game by the decisions that you made in the game. I felt like with a game that has decisions, it should affect the gameplay, and it didn't. And I was kind of disappointed by that. In mostly kind of a, I felt like the developers didn't give their all for the ending of the game, you know?
I feel the same way about that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like they put so much thought into every other single part of the game, and then they were at the end and they're like, "Oh, we're out of ideas, so let's just
like they
do it real quick."
Threw it together. There was no closure, and it didn't even let you choose whether you wanted to go back and take care of Julia, or if you were going to find another job, or if you were going to pursue Delilah, or what you wanted to, you know.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe you do kind of choose, but it's just kind of in your own head, because, you know, throughout the entire game, you're kind of role-playing this character, right? Because that's what you do in a game like this. You kind of, unless you're a crazy person like Mike, you set like an idea in your head. This is what this character is. If I was this character, this is what I would do. And so when you get that decision at the end, do you want to ask Delilah to come be with you, and then she turns you down, or do you want to like just go home to your wife? You can kind of just think in your head, you know, I think I know what this character is going to do from here. I don't know if they need to explicitly state he went home and did the blah 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 blah, and like this, and they all lived, and everything was sad forever, because that's probably what his life's going to be. I think what they did was, I hate that, oh, it's open for interpretation thing, but to me what this game is it's a reality punch. It's like you went into the middle of nowhere, you got a little bit paranoid, some crazy things happened, and now it's time to go home to your wife. I think there's some homey message in that, and I kind of like that. And I didn't find the whole it's Ned thing to be like the person who's tracking you, the person who's keeping an eye on you, the person who's stalking you, the person who hit you and knocked you out in the middle. That creepy, ominous figure that just kind of is looming over you for the majority of the game is still a really creepy, weird character. I mean, I wish that we could have caught him. That would have been neat. But to me, finding the body of his son was kind of the most gripping, creepy, eerie thing I've seen in a game in a really long time. Just having to step over his body and then get out. That screwed with me. I don't know about you guys, but that like messed me up a little bit because I got super invested in this game. And that just kind of stuck with me. So to me, that was the end of the game. Finding the body. And like, it's gotta be the other ranger. There's no way it's anybody else. It has to be him. And then you go back to the tower, the fire gets worse, you find the tape, you climb up the rope, you find the hideout, you see everything, and you're like, okay, that's what this was. And then you go home. I don't know. To me, that was where that ended.
Yeah, that aspect of the story I loved. I absolutely loved the everything building up until you find the body. I loved the mystery of, who's the one that's doing this, who's tracking us. Just like you said, stepping over that body, you're just like, this is wrong. This is just wrong. And when you find Ned's hideout, like it made sense. And I loved that part. And I'm like, he's climbing with his son. He's in an area he's not supposed to be. He's breaking the rules. His son dies. His son falls and dies. And he's a miserable father hiding from his own shame of, I let my son die because I was being irresponsible.
Yeah.
He's trying to keep you from finding the body. He's trying to keep everything a secret. He's got his own hideout. That's why he's tracking you. That's why he's recording your conversations and taking notes. He's also being a little bit creepy because he's lonely, and he's taking excessive notes about things that are irrelevant. But that whole aspect of the story, I just absolutely loved. And I liked the ending of the body of who was tracking me and the discovery of the body. I think that was really well done.
Did anybody find the turtle?
I looked for it, but I didn't find it.
Did anybody find the turtle?
I think I found it in my second playthrough, because the reason I found it is because I found the instructions how to find it online.
I think it's because this turtle was like all over like promotional material for this game. I think in like almost every trailer there's like one scene with him just like looking at this turtle, and I obsessed over finding this turtle, and I never found the turtle, and I want to know where the turtle was so I can go back and find the turtle.
The lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you yell at the girls. It's near there.
Okay.
Oh,
Go play it again. Go find the turtle.
I'm gonna go find the turtle.
I was looking at the river because I think Mike. I think you watched me play it, right, Mike?
Parts of it, yeah.
I think you were trying to guide me to have me find the turtle, but I was looking where this river and this boulder was. I didn't know it was up the lake.
No, it was all the way up the lake. Yeah, sorry. I think I told you like half of the hints, and then I had to leave.
Oh,
so hanging there.
Okay, no worries. You can pick it up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you can pick it up.
You can pick it up and keep it as your friend, and it's like a holdable item, and you can look at it. And
that's awesome.
It's the only other like character that you see face to face in the entire game.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a quick question for everyone here.
Go ahead.
When I was looking at reviews for this game, pretty much everyone said turn off the icon that says where you are on the map. Did anyone actually do that?
I got lost a lot with that icon on.
Yeah.
So that would have been a nightmare. I went on full blackout with this game, actually. I didn't read any reviews. I watched about 15 seconds of Lude's stream just to say hi. I don't want spoilers. Bye. I think the only spoilers I had about this game going in and like discussion that I heard was a little bit of the co-optional podcast until they were like, yeah, no, we're gonna start spoiling stuff now, and I was like, oh, bugger all, and I just skipped through that part of the podcast. So I need to actually go back and listen to their discussion on it, because I hear that Jesse Cox went absolutely hamsters and looked through everything. It's funny that Lewis mentioned like performance issues before, because you know the first time you have the ability to run into the fence pretty early on, when if you take a slightly wrong turn, you can encounter the fence, and then Delilah's like, what? Why is there a fence there? That's weird. Did any of you guys have that happen?
I did that my first playthrough.
If you walk, if you walk to the edge of the fence, there's like this humongous graphical bug where you could literally just crawl under the fence. And he's like,
yeah, I saw that.
He's like, there is no way I could get over this. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, yeah, you could. You could very easily just crawl under that. Right?
Yeah.
And that just...
But then you can't crawl in the game, so...
I know! Yeah. And there was a number of points where it's like, there is like this hill I can't get up. And I'm looking at like this rock formation next to it. It's like this very like slight slope going up and over a hill, nice and down. I'm like, I could just walk over that. So there were some like traversal parts of the map design that kind of bugged me. And another thing that kind of took me out of it a little bit is they reference time quite a bit. Things like we traveled a really far distance, or we were walking for hours type thing. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I was walking for about 15 seconds. So I actually kind of wish that this game actually had more loading screens, because there was a few points where like it is literally just a little open world, right? Like you can just kind of go anywhere at any point, more or less, within a little bit of reason.
I wanted to actually jump in on that, because that was the other thing I'd heard about this game. It's like, oh, it's a big open game. You can, go do whatever. It's like, it's this big exploration. You got a map. You get familiarized with it. I never got that. Maybe I'm just too observant of mechanics, but I felt very gated. That a lot of the things oh, you get that first rope to get you down that one area, but it snaps to force you to go back a different way.
Well, once you get the backpack, you're kind of free to go anywhere.
Yeah, and then once you get the rope, you can start doing all the stuff, except for when there's overgrowth, in which point you need to get the axe, and then you can climb down certain things if you get the other thing. It was very clearly leading you down a linear path, despite it pretending to give you freedom.
That's interesting. Because I would almost say it's almost more of like a Castlevania light. You know what I mean? Because you have like this little center section initially, which is very linear. And then you get the backpack, and then it opens up like 2/3 of the map. And then you get that hatchet, and then you get the rest of the map. I don't know. Sorry for interrupting.
I felt like it was very linear. I felt like anytime going somewhere that I wasn't supposed to be going felt like I was wasting time, and felt like, like I didn't want. I don't know. I tried to, because there was a point where I missed those yellow boxes, and they've got like certain clues and papers and items inside those boxes. Well, I had progressed through the story, and I missed one of those boxes, and so I wanted to go back and get that box, and so I did. And so I was able to kind of veer away from the linear path to go get whatever was in that box, a book or whatever it was. And I just felt the whole time like I was just wasting time. And I think Delilah, even on the radio, was like, what are you doing? Are you checking on this yet? And I'm like, hold on a second. I'm getting this box.
It's a long walk, Delilah. Chill out.
Exactly.
I felt like I actually ran into kind of an opposite situation, so that on the last day you have to head straight north. So I looked on the map and I said, okay, there's a path I can take that's a little bit more to the west. So since I'm on the west side, I'll just take that path up. And I went up there, and I ended up at a shell wall. And I was like, oh, I was supposed to go down this at some point so that the rope would be there so I can climb back up. So I had to walk all the way back, basically to the lookout, and then walk all the way north again, just because I didn't go that one way one time.
Mm-hmm.
Lost a lot of time doing that.
I found myself looping around backwards a bunch until I actually remember how a compass works. I don't know. I almost wish that this game had an idiot mode. So, like, You know in Dead Space where you hold down a button and it's like, here's a line on the ground, follow it? There was a very brief period where I kind of wished that I could just be like, boop, hit this button. Obviously, you know, make it optional, but just like, go here for people like me who can't map. Like, in reality, give me a map and a compass and I can go just about anywhere. I used to do stuff like that all the time, especially with backpacking and whatnot. But looking at that little map on the ground is like, I don't know. Maybe let me plot out a point and it would just give me a little dot on the ground or something. Because there was, especially one point, when you're in that little nice glade and there's like the shredded tents when you're trying to find the girls. And you're just kind of like walking around. I was walking around about 15 feet away from those tents because I found the FOV in the game a little low. Not like unplayably low. If it was a little bit lower, I probably actually wouldn't have finished the game because I would have gotten migraines. But I was just kind of like walking in circles, half looking at the map and half not, about literally 10 steps away from these tents. And I was just not looking at the right angle. And I couldn't see these tents. And I was just walking around going, where the hell am I? And I must have walked in circles for about 3 or 4 minutes to the point where Delilah's like, look left. Which was weird. And then I turned to the left, it's like, oh, derp. Like the game's like, you dumb. I don't know.
Yeah. I think if there were, I guess what you're saying, kind of fast travel points or points where you're like, yeah, just get me back to this thing. The game would have been too short because the game is already a very, very short game, and so if the traveling was taken out of the game, you'd have less appreciation for the art. Because I think that a lot of the game is looking around and just admiring how good they do graphics.
I wish there was more.
Yeah.
You know what? I actually wish the world was bigger. And I know that they're a small team and they had limited time and limited budget, but I actually genuinely wish there was more walking or more loading screens. And this is like kind of what I mentioned before, like when, say, she'll be like, oh, I'll talk to you when you get back to the tower or whatever. And then you're walking for about, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes because it's really not that big of a world. And you do move pretty quickly when you're holding down that run key and you're kind of chugging along. And you get back and then Delilah responds with something like, well, how was your hike? And he's like, it was long, a couple hours. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, why couldn't they have just given us like a fade to black? Like they did there was a couple times where she's like, oh, hike back. And then it'll be like day 70, whatever. And I thought that those day cuts were really cool. I think they did a really good job on the timing of those. But I wish they did something like that and maybe, I don't know, have a 2D animated thing. Because like it's a very cartoony art style. They could have done like a cel-shaded, like cartoony thing or something. Just like a bunch of scenes of scenery and like just like footsteps or something to like make the distance seem bigger because that map just felt tiny. It genuinely felt small. But I don't know. What did you guys think about your first actual encounter with Ned when you get hit in the back of the head? Did that ow did that startle any of you guys? Like, because that kind of came out of nowhere to me.
Yeah, I got a bit startled by that as well.
I mean, it didn't help that it took me 15 minutes to find that stupid radio, but I was quite startled. I will say, I didn't actually mention this earlier when I should have. I mentioned that the performance of my laptop was terrible. Yeah. So I went downstairs and I stole the computer I had built for my dad, which was connected to the TV. So I just played on the TV.
Okay.
And that sounds even more vicious with like a high quality 5.1 surround sound stereo.
You get whacked in the face from all directions.
Yeah.
I have a nice headset and that thump actually made me jump. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but there's a few subtle footsteps before you get hit. I think that is one of the most right up there with the, oh god, there's a body 15 feet in front of me. That is one of the most powerful like moments in the game. It's, oh god, this is real.
Because it gives you that warning, hey, something is wrong, and it takes away control. So like when you start hearing the footsteps, if you try moving, you can't.
I did.
Right?
I tried spinning around.
Panic, what's happening? What I need to see what's going on, and then you get that like turning around, boom, done.
Yeah. No, and I don't know about you guys, but like because we know that like the storyline kind of fell down. Let's talk about it at its high point right now. Because I with the exception of just I think me for is that true? Is it just me who liked the entire story from beginning to end?
I mean, I liked it. Because I think the story was fun. I didn't
Yeah.
have any issues with the story itself.
Okay. Let's talk about it at its high point. So before you find the body, maybe right before you start heading into the cave, when you're in the heat of everything, maybe right after you... Like, what was the highest point in the game for you guys? Let's start with Lewis.
Come back to me on that one.
Okay.
That is,
You got put on the spot right there.
You don't like being put on the spot, do you? Lud, what do you think? What was the highest point in this game for you?
I think the highest point was finding the body. Was finding the body because when you find the body, you still have this giant conspiracy mindset of like, okay, this is something bigger. You know, they're hiding something. Is this the government? Is this some secret organization? You know, you find that's right after you find you break into the the deer tracking area and you find notes about yourself and you find all these things. You get locked in the cave previously. Somebody comes and shuts the door as you turn the corner. And so when you find the body, you're like, okay, this is what's wrong. This is what's going on. This is what's trying to be hidden. And so that, I think that's probably the highest point in the game is when you find it. So probably that or right before that when the door shuts and you're in the cave. I think those two moments were probably the highest in my opinion.
I'm going to go in a slightly different direction.
Okay.
Like, I would say it's actually in between those two moments. So in between, the door gets slammed behind you and you're stuck in the cave, and you find the body in the cave. You leave the cave first because you need to get the climbing gear to actually get down to that where the body is, and you kind of walk up this hill, and you end up in this little, I don't know what you'd call it, this
Hideout
essentially, yeah.
The little D&D fort.
Yeah, and you see the kids' stuff there. That was really interesting because basically every single item on there you could have a conversation with Delilah about. It was all rather interesting.
How much did you guys bug Delilah?
Yes, all of it.
I started to feel bad. I just kind of stopped. I'm like, this isn't even worth her time. Like, I'm just being like a dick at this point.
There was no free thinking in that game. It was, what's your opinion, Delilah? Hey, Delilah, what's your opinion?
I
Hey,
found
Delilah, I just fell down a cliff and almost broke my back.
I found their
What's your opinion?
I found their clothes.
Yeah.
I found their bras. I found their underwear. Oh, you can't handle that. Try not to get too excited. I don't know. I think that for me, honestly, the most interesting and powerful moments in the game were just like kind of the quiet conversations with Delilah. I think that there was some really, really interesting dialogue, especially that sequence when they're naming the forest fire. When you're just kind of sitting there and you've just kind of had like that fright of, oh, my tower got broken into. You're still kind of hot off of that. A number of things have kind of happened. You've encountered a bunch of rambunctious teenagers. You spent an hour trying to pile beer cans on top of a hill, if you're me, just to have them despawn. And so you've been through a little bit of struggle and strife, and like you're sitting there and it's like, right, we're all just people. It's time to get back to work. And that was just a really kind of not just relaxing, but just kind of interesting moment in the game for me, because it's like, let's see where this relationship between these two characters goes. And this is actually bringing up the one kind of issue that I had with this game. The character Delilah, name one thing about her aside from the fact that she's sassy. And she sits a lot.
You don't know what she looks like.
You don't know what she looks like.
Boy.
You don't really know what she does. Aside from that, she apparently sleeps around a lot, according to mixed messages. But aside from that, we don't really know that much about her, aside from that she can't really hold her alcohol. There isn't actually that much character development with Delilah, and that, I think, disappointed me a little bit, because she's a very fun character who's just kind of the background narrator, almost.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wish that they went into a little bit more depth, and I wish that they talked more, like, from her point of view, and had more of her You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did anybody else? Were you gonna say something?
Maybe. Again, I never really felt like she wasn't developed enough. I mean, she had progression. She had a character progression, which I think was fine for this sort of thing. But like, I mean, if you remove the text that you go through at the beginning of the game, and the few dialogue trees that involve said text, it's not like your main character has that much more development. And so really all it is he has that intro scene and she doesn't.
Well, I mean, I guess, like, with the main character, you have that, as you said, the intro scene, which is the text at the beginning. That is character development. You know what I mean? And I guess that was the only real disappointment I had about the story for the game, is that there wasn't enough... Like, there was a really interesting bit at the beginning, which is what I mentioned, like that scene with the forest fire when Delilah's pissed drunk. And then that other point when, like, you wake up and she's pretending to be your wife, which to me was actually creepy as shit. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
I found that moment very strange. It's like, why is she, like, role-playing with me?
I did not get what was going on there until the second playthrough. Like, first time, I confused Julie with Delilah, and I thought it was Delilah talking to you drunk.
What?
And then the second time through, I figured out what had happened, because the next day, Delilah says to you, "You had called me up the other day, and the only thing I could catch through your mumbling was Julie."
I think I think your character got drunk and kind of woke up and thought he was talking to his wife.
That or was sleepwalking, but yeah, that was a dream.
I sleepwalk and talk, so I could see that happening. That's plausible. But yeah, no, that there was like a little brief moment there with really, really, really interesting development between these two characters, and then after that, Delilah is just kind of a voice to push the plot forward. The plot's interesting. It's good plot, but I wish that there was more Delilah, especially at the end there, and this is another issue I have with the small world. When you go across the world to go to the end, and you just kind of get on that train car, and they're talking about hanging out at the beginning and whatnot, they're really close together. Like, that disconnect of the size of the world, to me, kind of made it seem silly at the end when you're just kind of sitting there and you're like, he could have just kind of walked over there and hung out with her. Like, he could have done that.
Yeah.
They're not that far apart. Especially the way they were talking at the beginning there, when, they're both drinking. He could have done that very easily because of the size of the world. And that's why I wish the world was either bigger or had loading screens involved. I've never actually asked for a loading screen in a game before, but I think it would have given it more context for me. Even if it was just a clock. Yeah. Like it's been 3 hours clock, and then the sun moves. Because, like, the sun doesn't move. It's fixed for that day, that point in time. Like, it moves a little bit.
Kind of.
But
I'm actually a little confused on how the time worked. I'm fairly certain it's based on progression, so kind of depending on where you are on the map determines what time of day it is.
Mm-hmm.
But did anyone else get that impression? Am I just crazy on that?
I didn't pay much attention to the day-night cycle.
I don't think the sun moved at all, really. I think... like, you just move around in the map, and they just kind of change the lighting a little bit, but...
I was just going to say there's change in color to represent passing the... no actual.
But I think the location of the sun does move, because I saw it lower in the horizon.
Maybe.
No, I don't think I looked at the sun, so...
It might... No, I did, Mike. I think it's probably plot-based. It's probably as you hit different points in the dialogue, the sun moves a little bit.
Yeah.
So you could probably just walk around in circles forever, and the sun...
Does that mean that if you go backwards, the sun reverses?
Unless you can reverse dialogue.
No, oh, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, you go.
All right, so about Delilah, she seemed more of kind of like a task giver than anything to me. She, kind of sending you, well, why don't you go check this out? Why don't you go check this out? She never really leaves her own tower. What little bit of progression you did have with her was her being very cryptic about, oh, look at this paper in your tower, and look at this tree, and I want you to go find that one tree, and did she say that she wanted to meet you there, or was that kind of just implied? 'Cause I can't remember.
I think it was implied.
It was implied. So you go there, and I think that was a little bit of progression of a character development, and one thing that I did like, however, was almost no matter where you were in the game, you could look up and you could see her tower.
Yeah.
She would. Yeah, I thought that was really cool because, like, you know, if she had a telescope, she could pretty much watch you do this entire game.
Right. I'm super glad that I let you go first because now I can do a thing that I wanted to say even better. So going back to what Blind said originally, that there is no that much character development, and he wanted that to be more there off Delilah. I think the main reason why it's cut down to the minimum is because it's just your conversation thing that happens to the side of the actual story that they wanted to convey. And to me, the game feels like it's much more about and I'm going to put this in air quotes, exploring, because it's just about going around and finding out small clues and then discussing them with her, only just to like make that plot clearer in case you didn't get it from the clue you got. So essentially, you could have the game work completely without the conversations. And then what you said, that she just seems like a task giver who's pushing the story forward with, like, she's essentially the person who gives you the next objective to do.
She's the quest giver.
Yeah, she's the quest giver, but it's her job, right? Her actual job in the game. She is the manager for all she's the manager, right?
Yeah.
So she does the onboarding, which is, your first day there. She gives you your first tasks and everything, and she just keeps giving you jobs that you need to do, and it's part of your summer there, and that's why you are there, and that's why she's there. She's just supposed to give out all the jobs, and she sits in the tower that's topmost and just watches all the other Firewatches do their stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the final thing that I wanted to say as well about the map size, I think that you're forgetting, Blind, that there is a massive empty space between the mountain, so you can't just cross and go over to her place. And I found this accidentally as well while I was trying to find something. I can't even remember what it was that I was finding, but I went up the wrong way, and I got to the actual area where the emergency part is.
Where the lift is?
I'm sorry?
Where
The cable car?
The cable car.
Yeah, the cable car.
Okay,
yeah. Yeah. And you go there and you say, well, can I not just use this to go and visit you, is what he says. And she's like, no, because it's only for emergencies.
Interesting. See,
and that's the only way you could go get to her tower.
That is neat. That's actually really neat.
So it's just like one of those things that is hidden. And if you're playing bipolarly like me, and then you miss most of the stuff, you will end up finding. So give that a try.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I mean, I definitely agree that the map could have been larger, but again, theme size and everything.
Yeah.
I also think it works quite well, and although I know that Lewis said that he thinks it's just very linear in the way it pushes you, it technically is, but it's it has that sort of branch to linear design, where you're given at the point when you pick up the rope, or at the point when you get the axe, you're given the freedom to roam around, and no matter where you go, you're going to end up at the place where you go. But you have that sort of fake choice, which I think works really well with the story and with the exploring, and not as much as you go and learn more about the place, but it's you get familiar with the place just as the person who's there for the summer would get more familiar with the place over time. And I think this happened at one point. I just stopped using the map because I knew, I need to get to that cave. Oh yeah, I need to take that route there, take the turn, and there I am, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a very powerful element of the game as well, that is being pushed with this with it being linear, but also letting you walk around different ways to get from point A to point B.
Even though I
never actually got to that point. A lot of people are talking about that, like the map becomes familiar. You don't need to pull out your map to figure out where you're going. I never quite got to that point.
You just kept getting lost?
Yeah, I kept getting lost.
I did too, but I don't know. I think the main issue that I had was I had 4.5 hours to beat this game. Like, I started at a specific time, and I had to leave my house at 7. So I'm sitting here, and I was kind of like, on a timeline and a man on a mission to beat this game. So I was trying to optimize my routes, and I think that actually made me take longer. Hence why I was kind of walking in circles next to that tent for about 15 minutes once. I think the concept of it would be like the best way to play this game is if you just turn off like where you are on the map. I can kind of see that. I can see how that would make it more immersive, maybe. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I heard about it, but I didn't do it because I have no sense of direction.
I think if I played through it a second time, I think I'd probably turn that off because I feel like I'm already a little familiar with the map and I could probably get around.
Yeah.
And maybe I'd do it off stream where I'd give it kind of more time to maybe wander around.
Did you guys find the collection? Sorry to interrupt you, but did you guys find the collection of notes left by the other Rangers?
Yeah.
Got a few of them.
I found one and didn't have time to go looking for the rest of them. What was that about?
It was just two guys that were there, and they were talking to each other about various things in their life. There were some jokes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's just like an extra piece that if you really want to invest the time to go looking for that. Like there's a few small things that are like hidden that you don't necessarily come across if you rush through the game. So like if you're really into the exploring part and if you're really like trying to find out more, and if you get over the fact that sometimes you will get into the conversation part with Delilah where she asks you to do something and you need to respond, but you're like, no, I don't want to do that now. I just want to, pick around and find new things. And so while I was doing this, I also came across a dead deer, and this is where you find the tracker on the deer as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a small piece of the puzzle that you might also miss, right? And it's, I don't know, it just feels that to me personally, it would have been really important to find that deer. And if I hadn't found it, like a part of the game just wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I know people have missed the deer, so like in their playthroughs.
I'm going to say something real quick that I think in relation to all of this, in the sense that not being familiar with the map, the issue of kind of missing stuff, and even just the issue of not enough character progression on Delilah, I think like the one thing they could have done that could have made it better is the time between day 2 and day 72, I think it is, takes the span of like 10 minutes. It's not very long, and it jumps a lot of what should be character development. And I think if they had spent just a bit more time on that, they could have done a lot to solve these issues.
So that kind of ties back into just I wish that there was more character development in general for Delilah specifically, but that's just because I found her sassy and funny.
Yeah.
Aside from that, she likes crossword puzzles. We don't really know too much about her.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, she was kind of a secretive character. You can find out a little bit about her actually if you're when you're in Ned's hideout at the very end.
He's got notes on her.
He's got notes about her, which are kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's play backseat game developer and just sit here and go, okay, if you could have changed one thing, or maybe a couple small things, like specifically, maybe it's the ending, maybe it's adding in an epilogue, what would you have changed about Firewatch? Let's start with Mike. Unless
I'm trying to think.
Unless Lewis actually wants to say something.
I wanted to say something else, like on top of expanding that time between those days. The other thing I would do is remove a lot of the invisible walls. So there's a lot of area where like, okay, there's not a trail, so you can't walk there. I would rather it be like, well, you can walk there. It's going to be difficult. You'll struggle to get through everything, but you can, if you want to cut completely over this mountain and try to get somewhere else, you can do that.
Are you saying you wanted platforming in this game?
Maybe not platforming, but like allow me to go off the beaten path. Allow me to make my own, so it's not like it feels like it's pushing me down this path to go a certain way. I'd rather it give me a little bit more flexibility, allow me to explore on my own terms.
Perhaps die in the game and have to restart the day or go back to a previous loading screen or something. Like maybe if you try to go down one of the hills without a rope, you fall and die. Or if you take the wrong place or go into a certain area, you get attacked by an animal or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that'd be kind of.
I was actually there was a couple points in the game where I was going, this is a really dead forest. Because at the very beginning, when this is the one thing I would change it. This is kind of what I thought for most of the game. It's actually my sole complaint of one of my favorite games of all time, which is Far Cry 2. Yes, I liked Far Cry 2. Don't crucify me. There is a massively sparse amount of wildlife. I want to see a squirrel. There's squirrels everywhere in forests. I've been in forests. There's a raccoon and there's that elk. There's barely any birds. You hear birds. I love the sound design of this game. It's beautiful. Why couldn't I look up and just see, like, maybe even
birds?
Like, imagine if you looked, if you were by the cave at the beginning of the game and you looked up and there was buzzards. Wouldn't that have been interesting? Like
I think
vultures.
That body in the cave though had been there for quite a long time, and it was untouched by any kind of animal. It was just...
But like, there's little tiny nuances that I think they could have done with a little bit of wildlife, and even as you brought up with like the fail states thing, like, what if you go a direction, maybe even Delilah warns you, like, don't go that way, like, there's wildlife over there or something, and you run into a cougar. Like, I was just constantly expecting to run into that bear that went through the tent. Like, maybe even just hear it. Because the only wildlife sounds, aside from that one point where you hear that in the background, which is an elk, and then he's like, I don't know, that sounded horrible. Like, that was an elk. You're crazy. I've heard elk before. That's what they sound like. I've also heard moose. Those things are bloody terrifying sounding. It sounds like hell's coming out, like freaking hellfire's coming out of the ground. But no, seriously, it's like wildlife. It would have added a lot more life to the world instead of making it just kind of seem like I'm the only person there. I know they wanted you to feel alone, like solitary, but I don't know. I think that animals would have made the world a little bit more believable.
For sure, and you see kind of signs of them. Exactly like you said, you hear the birds and the trees, and you see the shredded tent, and you see signs of animals, but you never really get to see a bear. You never really get to see, squirrels. We're talking about, this is in Wyoming. This is a forest in Wyoming. It's covered in squirrels and birds and wildlife. If you go to Wyoming, it's everywhere. Deer are everywhere.
Mice.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Maybe make him wake up one day, look down, see a mouse, jump, and then the mouse runs away. Like, I guarantee you he's got mice in his tower. Or at least around his tower. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think there's just maybe a few subtle things that they could have tweaked. Mike, do you have anything that you would change about this game? I don't think that you...
I am going to tell you something that I might sound a bit controversial here, but I'll do it anyways. And I'm also going to use this as my wrap up, because we're reaching that time anyways. I know I said that the game was, like, for me personally at the end, a bit of a letdown, but I don't think I would want to change a single thing about it. And I honestly did enjoy the game up to that 85%, and I love the game in general, and the story that they had wasn't bad, so I don't want to change anything about that. And I think adding on more stuff to it will affect it. Well, like, it would just affect it in a way that it wouldn't be the same game, and I don't know. I just wouldn't want that. I think that wildlife would be neat, but it wouldn't add much to the experience of what they're trying to convey of that story, and it wouldn't. I don't know. I just don't think it would change the game for me at all. And as well as anything else that was suggested, I just don't think it would change the game to the point where I would say, hey, this is now an amazing game, because it already is. And, it's a good game. That's all I can say. And as I said, story ending, but acceptable, whatever. But What I want to say though is going back to the fact that you have wanted that character development, and that that's also a possible change, and that the map could have been bigger. I think it's quite important for the story that you know so little about Delilah, for example, that there is no actual character development on your end, and that there are gaps in time which are not explained. So like we actually have no idea what he could have learned about Delilah from like when we jump from day 7 to like day 40, right? You have absolutely no idea what happened in their interactions. And I think for me personally, there was a moment in the game when you walk into the cave and the door gets closed, and for like half a second, I had a thought in my head, maybe it's Delilah, right? Because I have no idea what's happening. Like you don't know her. There are parts of the game where you can overhear her have a conversation that you have no idea what's it about, and she says, he doesn't know anything about it, so let's keep it that way. And there's like small hints that like make her suspicious as well as everything else that's happening. And I think that if they changed the amount of interaction and the character development you had, it would ruin that for me. And yeah, so I wouldn't change anything.
Maybe. Actually, yeah, that's a good point. Would they try and... I don't know. I guess I never really suspected Delilah.
Yeah. I suspected Delilah a little bit.
I was...
Now...
Go on.
Okay, so preparing for this podcast, I actually read a thing on, Campo Santo's website, which, guys, if you haven't been there, it's amazing. It's beautiful.
It's awesome.
But they have a quarterly review section of the website, and there was a article in that quarterly review called "The End of Firewatch," and I read that whole thing, kind of preparing for the podcast. And one thing that they say is that it's kind of it slaps you in the face with reality. Look, quit running from your problems, quit running from your responsibilities. You've got a wife that has dementia. She needs your help. And this isn't going to be just another game where you can run away from your problems and get a different girl and life goes on good and happy for you. It's not a bed of roses. So having kind of a more realistic look, Henry, go take care of your wife. You shouldn't see me. I didn't want to meet you. That ending, although it was underwhelming, was very real.
Yeah.
It was very real. And because we are wrapping up, I would say that I loved the game, even with the underwhelming end. Without changing a single aspect of the game was amazing. It was very immersive. The color palettes and the sound and the graphic design were amazing, breathtaking.
It was like a Pixar film.
Yeah, it really was. It was like a Pixar film. It was an amazing game. I highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't played it. I guess I would agree with what Mike said. It doesn't need changing. Let's leave that for Firewatch 2.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're gonna get a Firewatch 2, oddly enough. That would be kind of odd, actually. I think that the somewhat mundane ending, as I actually said earlier on, I think I actually echoed what you just said like about an hour ago. I really, really like the mundane ending. It's a punch in the face with reality. It's like, here, quit trying to be a weirdo and just go home and be with your wife. She needs you. Even if she doesn't remember you, she still needs you. So I guess that feeling of emptiness, that was not what I expected, I guess is kind of the impact of reality. This is what would happen, This isn't the...
Wait, I need to interject. I'm sorry, Blind. Now that you mentioned this, it just hit me. Now that you said it's the feeling of emptiness that you feel, and then that's like hit the reality. Maybe that is what he actually feels.
Yeah.
The summer job has ended. He was looking to find something different, but he didn't. It's all the same. Nothing has changed, and he now needs to go back to his old life, and that's the emptiness that he's feeling. And then the game portrays that to us with that weak ending.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. And
another thing that kind of adds to the weak ending is which is also very realistic, is, I mean, when you find the body and you tell Delilah about it, she immediately builds a wall. She doesn't want to talk to you anymore very much. She's very short with her answers. She's very closed, and so that's also very realistic in the fact of, like, she found out that the reason this kid has not been found was because she didn't snitch on them being in an area they shouldn't be in. And so that kind of added to the underwhelming end.
Yeah, no, I actually, that's interesting now that you mentioned that, because I hadn't actually thought about the you mention it and she freaks out and she built a wall. She's like, oh god, like, what have I done? Because she blames herself for you finding the body, right? Because she didn't notify the authorities when Ned brought his son out and whatnot, and things kind of fell down from there, right? That's interesting.
Yep.
That's actually really interesting. So,
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe I'm going to look at this in the same direction I looked at Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, and that's maybe they're using the reality shock to make you feel kind of like maybe a sense of loss and confusion and nothingness, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I have a messed up life, and now I have to go face that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Lewis, do you have anything?
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts?
I'll say this. I actually didn't know anything about this game before I played it for the podcast.
Good!
And the thing was, I wasn't expecting it to be a mystery story. This kind of like, you know, what happened, what's going on. And I'd say my biggest disappointment was when I realized that, because that's not necessarily something I'm particularly fond of.
You're not big on thrillers?
Well, I don't know. It was just something where I thought maybe the game was going to go in a different direction, like altogether.
Did you get kind of a Life is Strange vibe from the game?
I mean, maybe, but maybe even more like.
Did you want to find a hatch and then aliens to pop out? Like, did you want to go full, like, Freak Show Lost with this thing? Like, what are you talking about?
No, but I mean, like, they have this story. Like, you know, maybe it would have been extremely mundane if all you did was your job.
Actually, sorry to interject here, but it's funny that you mentioned that, because I did have a mini discussion about this game with FM Scan Radio. Fantastic streamer, by the way. Like, a few days ago, and that was his exact thought. Why can't I just, you know, go do my job for a bit? Why did it jump straight into the story? Anyways, go on. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, like, and maybe I thought it would be more about the job itself. Like, I mean, I don't know. I've liked a lot of those games that are basically just, you know, doing a job. But I'm not gonna complain about the game for what it isn't. It isn't that. But what it is good.
Mm-hmm.
So
you were hoping for kind of a Park Ranger Simulator 2015.
Maybe not simulator. There was definitely something going on there, you know.
Plot Ranger Simulator 20. Sorry, go on. I thought of a funny and I had to say it.
I don't know. It wasn't what I expected, but what it is good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was expecting Overwatch, so it's definitely not what I was expecting.
Hey, Lou, I mean, obviously, that's going to be Firewatch too, right? Overwatch.
Mm-hmm.
What is Firewatch?
You keep on playing when it comes out.
What is Firewatch? Sorry, did anybody else remember that marketing campaign? That was just such a funny marketing campaign to me.
I don't. I didn't see it.
The first time they announced Firewatch, it was just at E3, and it was just this huge sign on the wall that just said, "What is Firewatch?" And it became a massive joke on giantbomb.com, if you ever read that website. And that entire E3, literally, the start of every single interview they did was they went up to them and said, "What is Firewatch?" Even, like, the guys making Tacoma. And they had announced Tacoma. Their first question was, "What is Firewatch?"
No, I will say that the branding for the game is very well done as well. Like,
yes.
yes, the branding was really well done. Like, for example, if you go to the website, they sell like Firewatch shirts and stickers and things like that. And the logo for the game alone, I think, is awesome. A very minimalist logo.
Yeah.
I want to.
I would slap one of those on my car.
I want to buy the photos. I filled up my camera, and I want to buy those photos. I might actually do it once I get paid and actually have some money. That's something that I kind of want to do, and I want to frame them and put them on this wall. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
I think talking about branding, it was very interesting because they, when they officially announced the game, it was only shown on the PlayStation experience. So it was dubbed like the PlayStation exclusive, which I was like, can I just have this on PC? And I was so happy when they said, yeah, it's also going to be on PC. But I think just talking about the branding, because you brought it up, and I just remember this, like when that was happening, I was so going crazy about the game because they had a blog post about how they designed their assets used for the Sony Experience stage, because it's a massive like 6-screen stage that all lights up in different colors, right? And it's done so perfect to their branding that you basically get that image from just the opening scenes, right, from the release trailers. The whole stage just went orange and red, and it was just beautiful, and it was just so Firewatch.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is the first game we've talked about that we've all been kind of more or less positive on. For the most part, I think.
I mean, we all liked the beginner's guide.
Oh yeah, I guess. Yeah. Anyways, I think we're all more or less done here, unless anybody has anything else they want to say before we close out here.
I'm good.
I was gonna say awkward silence. Excellent. That's what I want to hear. So now I guess is our opportunity to plug our stuff. So let's start with our guest, Lude. Promote yourself.
Follow me.
You'll follow him on Twitch.
Plug yourself. Wow.
Twitch.tv/Itslewdicolo. You should
yeah, like I said at the beginning, for the people who weren't here, I am a Minecraft streamer. I did play this Firewatch, on stream as well. But yeah, I do a lot of Twitch stuff. If you want to give me a follow, I'd really appreciate it. And I want to thank Blind and Flew and Mike for having me here on this podcast. It was great talking about this game with you. I was really, I was honored to be here.
And Mike, who are you and what are you doing? Why are you here? And yeah.
I don't know.
Why are you a cartoon
apparently,
character?
Blind likes me. Why am I a cartoon character? Because my internet is bonkers. Who am I? I am a software developer who's also a community manager for Knights of the Stream. KOTS.tv. Go check it out. You can follow me and the rest of the team on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all the stuff. And just for the branding unification, if you follow me, everything is just /Hiimmikegaming. You can find me everywhere like that.
And last but not least, LRFLEW. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm
Plug your
Lewis.
website, damn it.
What I'm gonna plug instead is my Twitch. I am starting to stream at twitch.tv/LRFLEW. Right now, I'm actually trying to route a game called Midnight Club 2 to try to start speedrunning it. So yeah, come check that out.
Okay.
If you're watching this live, I should actually be streaming some point later today.
Yeah, I'll probably be hosting them on this channel. Also,
there's one thing I just need to say about Lewis. If you guys want to watch a crazy car chase in LA, don't turn on the news. Go to twitch.tv/ I can't say his name. LRFLEW, maybe? Nothing. Go there. Just follow him, watch him speedrun the game.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Greg. The internet knows me as BlindiRL. This is my Twitch channel. If you're here, you probably already know me. I stream simulation games and other stuff. And I think we're done here. So thank you to everybody who tuned in. And I think this is the most viewership we've ever had on the live show. If you're watching on SoundCloud, check out the podcast. Go hit up our other episodes. We have done a couple of these at this point. We've actually been doing it for almost 6 months, which weirds me out. It's just a fun little project we do. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. And I guess that's it. Thank you very much for watching this episode of the Story Mode podcast, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a good night, everybody.